Hello everyone, back to today's first video. We're going to do the second Autumn 2018 Season 1 Roundup for today's first video. So we're going to get 11 long-range models together and see what they're all showing for the Autumn. The first model of the JMA doesn't quite cover the Autumn period, but all of the other models, the other 10, do cover the full Autumn period. We are short of the Poama model this month, which we normally do an interpretation of. Didn't have time to get that to you this month. I can tell you it's going for a rather wet and windy, Atlantic-driven type Autumn pattern. Can't show you that because it's restricted access stuff, and we didn't have time to get the interpretation together, but that's what it's showing. So I suppose with that little bit of information, we're probably up to around 12 long-range models now for this update. So I'll get on with your second Autumn 2018 Season 1 Roundup for you in a moment. Just to say that today's second video coming up just after lunch will be the weekend forecast, always on a Saturday, having a detailed look at weather forecast week ahead. And we'll also have a third video having a look at the weather for next week to 10 days, getting all of the models together, GFS, ECM, GM, all that kind of thing, seeing what they're all showing for the next week to 10 days as well. That video will be on the homepage. It's going to be quite a long video as always with the seasonal stuff, long range stuff, so it will be placed on the Autumn Updates forecast page later on, so you can't watch video all in one go, don't worry, you will be able to watch video whenever you want on demand on the Autumn Updates and forecast page, and there'll be a written summary that goes with that as well. But without further ado, let's get on with your second Season 1 Roundup for the Autumn of 2018. We're going to begin by having a look at the 500 millibar height anomaly charts, and then have a look at temperature and precipitation anomalies that go with those 500 millibar heights. So we begin by having a look at the August to October 500 millibar height anomaly from the JMA, which shows an area of above average heights over and to the north of the UK. You can't see the polar view on this, that's off the chart up there, but essentially for the late summer, early autumn period, it is going for quite a large area of above average heights. And in October, it does change things quite a lot, turns things much more unsettled, with a trough of below average heights centred over the country. So for the late summer, early autumn to mid-autumn, we find that we've got a temperature anomaly that's coming out a little bit above average, around a degree or so above average through the late summer and early autumn period. Precipitation-wise, it is generally drier than average for the next 3 months going into October, although bear in mind it does turn a lot more unsettled in October and probably bring some quite wet weather by the time we get to October. The overall wind direction through this late summer, early autumn period is generally easterly. Always a job to make these black arrows out, but generally easterly winds are coming into the UK. And that's because we've got an area of high pressure sitting up to our north. So quite dry, quite warm through late summer into early autumn, but there is a bit of a change there as we get through to October. Right, so now all of the other models will just cover the full autumn period. We begin by having a look at the Americas. So we go to South America, first of all, with the Brazilian model. This is the 500 millibar height anomaly from the Brazilian model. It shows an area of above average heights, high pressure, very much dominating the scene across much of Europe this autumn, with below average heights up to the north. So the jet stream is around there somewhere, going up to the north of the British Isles. So that brings us a lot of dry and warm weather, you would have thought, through the course of this autumn with the Brazilian model. And we're doing a little bit of a page refresh there, so that's a bit of a nuisance. Let's have a look at the temperature anomaly for September, October, November. There it is, and we find that we're going to get a warmer than average signal going on there as we go through into the autumn. Temperature anomalies are coming out warmer than average with the Brazilian model. Now let's flip this over to the precipitation anomaly, and maybe a little bit surprisingly, I'm a bit surprised about that, it is actually going for a wetter than average autumn to be close to the country. Above average rainfall coming up, which, given that height anomaly that we have there, you will think that is really quite high pressure dominated. It has got a fairly strong jet stream though, running up to the north of the country up there. Even so, based on the height anomaly, you would expect that to be a rather anticyclonic, rather high pressure dominated sort of water. So I am quite surprised that the precipitation anomaly is coming out a bit wetter than average. A little bit surprised about that. So we'll go through next to the CanSIPS model, and we'll have a look at that next, going up towards Canada. This is the mean sea level pressure anomaly from CanSIPS for the autumn of 2018. It has below average pressure up to the north with above average pressure in the middle of the Atlantic, and that means that the flow and the jet stream is coming through the Atlantic rather like that. It does look a little bit unsettled, that from CanSIPS. So if you have a look at the temperature anomaly next, let's do that for the autumn of 2018 from CanSIPS. We can see that overall it's coming out close to possibly a little bit above average, but not a big deviation. To be honest, close to average with the temperature anomaly. And then we're going through to the precipitation anomaly, and that's coming out again quite close to average, possibly hinting at being a little bit wetter than average to the northwest of the country. But again, not a big deviation. So CanSIPS is very close to average, really, both in terms of temperature and in terms of precipitation. It looks rather unsettled, though, from a mean sea level pressure perspective. It has got low pressure in the northern part of the Atlantic. We go to NASA next, and all I can show you with this is the temperature and precipitation anomaly. So this is the temperature anomaly from the NASA model for the autumn of 2018. Overall, a little bit warmer than average, really, a little bit above average with the temperature anomaly this season. As far as precipitation is concerned, it's coming out a little bit drier than average. So rather warmer, rather drier than average signal from the NASA model. It looks as though we're carrying on where we left off last month to some degree. Last month we had a very strong signal for above average temperatures through the autumn, but there was kind of like a 50-50 split between the models that were more unsettled, rather wetter, and the models that were rather dry. It looks like that's continuing to some degree through this second update as well. We're up to Precipitation Analogues next. So Precipitation works within the umbrella of NOAA, and Precipitation takes a look at sea surface temperature anomalies across the world in any given month. In this case, last month, in June rather. It's very hot here in the room again as I'm doing this update. So Precipitation looks at the sea surface temperature anomalies across the world in June, and then he creates an analogues-based forecast going forwards. So again, this is the 200 millibar height anomaly from Precipitation for this autumn. We've got below average heights, again out in the Atlantic, above average heights down to the south and also to the east. The flow and the jets coming in like that. So it does look rather unsettled, actually. It's an Atlantic-driven signal that we've got going on there. But also quite warm. So the temperature anomaly is coming out significantly warmer than average with Precipitation analogues, and as far as precipitation is concerned, it's coming out wetter than average. So a warm but wet autumn being signalled by Precipitation analogues this month. CFS V2 next is 700 millibar height anomaly from the CFS V2. It's going for above average heights to be centred over and to the east of the country, with below average heights in the Atlantic, which means the flow and the jet is doing something rather like that. A lot of high pressure influences there through the course of the autumn. You expect a pretty warm and fairly dry autumn signal with that one. Temperature anomalies are coming out warmer than average again. So this is obviously a clear trend. We haven't had any model yet showing colder than average temperature anomalies this autumn. They're all going for either one or two close to average, but most of them going warmer than average once again. So a warm autumn, warmer than average autumn coming up for much of Northern Europe. The UK and Ireland is included in that. Precipitation wise, it looks like this. So we're close to dry than average conditions across much of central Europe again. Looks very similar pattern to one that we've had through the summer, really, which would bring a lot of dry weather to the UK. And quite warm. I suppose by the time you get through to November, an anticyclonic pattern could be a bit colder, but overall dry but warm, I think, is the signal that CFSV2 is going for with this particular autumn. Then we've got the ECM to yes, these mean sea level pressure anomalies from the ECM for the autumn 2018. Not much of a signal, really, quite a weak signal, but it does have some below average heights to the north, an area of above average heights in the middle of the Atlantic. It looks like it is bringing in some sort of an Atlantic type flow this autumn. Temperature anomalies are generally coming out warmer than average, much of northern Europe through the autumn. The UK actually is quite close to average, just around half a degree above average, really. The warmth, the real warmth, is over in the east and in the northeast of Europe. As far as precipitation is concerned, so Central Europe is coming out a little bit drier than average this autumn. Out to the west of us, it's a little bit wetter than average. Might be a bit transitional what's going on there, so maybe a fairly anticyclonic signal for September, but by November, maybe actually unleashing something a little bit more unsettled, perhaps. Then we've got the Meteo France mean sea level pressure anomaly for the autumn. This is a much stronger anomaly, and it's an anomaly for above average heights to be centred over the UK and much of northern Europe as well. So a lot of high pressure influences there in terms of a mean sea level pressure anomaly. You would expect a big ridge to be dominating much of northern Europe this autumn. It means that as far as the temperature anomaly is concerned, it's warmer than average. All models again so far going warmer than average. UK and much of Western Europe coming out sort of half a degree to 1 degree warmer than average, with even warmer temperature anomalies than that over on the eastern side of Europe. But a very warm Europe and UK this autumn. And with high pressure dominating the weather through the course of the autumn, it's rather dry as well across particularly the northwestern part of Europe going out into the Atlantic. So a warm but dry signal with high pressure dominating this autumn from Meteo France, in rather a contrast to what the ECMWF is showing. Beijing Climate Centre next. This is a 200 millibar height anomaly from the Beijing Climate Centre. It has above average height centred over and to the east of the country. A strong ridge there. And by the way, I'm taking Beijing Climate Centre very seriously now, because it was the one model, actually, if you go back to last winter, in the final update, final seasonal model roundup before the winter of 2017-18, the Beijing Climate Centre was one of the few models that's picking up on the cold winter, or colder winter anyway. And then the final season model roundup just for this summer, Beijing Climate Centre was one of the few models that was going for a hot and dry summer. So I am taking the Beijing Climate Centre very, very seriously now, particularly when you're around 1 month before the season that you're interested in. So next month's update, third and final season model roundup, which would include the Beijing Climate Centre, that is going to be very, very interesting to see what that's showing for the autumn. But at the moment, the Beijing Climate Centre is going for a very strong anticyclonic signal to be dominating much of northern Europe. The UK is included in that. So it means that the temperature anomaly is coming out like this. It's coming out with a warmer than average temperature anomaly for the UK and for most of northern Europe as well, coming out with substantially warmer than average temperature anomalies. Precipitation-wise, it's drier than average, which you would expect with such a strong anticyclonic signal. So dry but warm autumn is being signalled by the Beijing Climate Centre. Bear in mind, autumn is a transitional season, so that pattern that we have there with the 200 millibar height anomaly in early autumn is going to be very warm, but by the time you get through to late autumn to November, could be quite cold. Jamstech comes up next. So this is a temperature anomaly from the Jamstech IOD model. Most of Europe is roasting. The UK and Ireland, actually one of the cooler places in Europe this autumn. Close to average for England, and maybe even going a little bit cooler than average for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Notice also Iceland is forecast to have quite a cool autumn. Overall, though, much of Northern Europe is looking fairly warm with the Jamstech model this season. And as far as precipitation is concerned, quite a weak signal. But I think for Scandinavia, it's coming out wetter than average. For the UK and for Ireland, coming out close to maybe a little bit drier than average. Spain and France coming out a bit wetter than average. So quite an unusual sort of pattern that the Jamstech model is going there in terms of the precipitation anomaly. Weak signals, but it has shifted a little bit warmer as it tends to compared to last month's update, because last month Jamstech was the only model that's going for colder than average autumn. It's not doing that now. Then finally, we've got the UK Met Office. So this is mean sea level pressure anomalies from the UK Met for the autumn of 2018, with a large area of high pressure close to the UK and Northern Europe as well. Low pressure is around here in the Atlantic and also up there as well. So an anticyclonic signal continues into the autumn with the UK Met closely 5 model. Temperature anomalies, they're coming out warmer than average for not just the UK but for most parts of Europe as well, coming out with a warm signal for this autumn. And then finally, precipitation wise, still a bit on the drier than average side actually for much of the UK. It looks a little bit more unsettled for Scandinavia, but for the UK, Ireland, probably France as well, it's still coming out drier than average as we have that strong anticyclonic signal. So there you have it. It's a bit of a mixed bag, and it follows on very much from the first update. Actually, there's been no real change on the situation that we saw in the first update. So the first thing to say is at the moment it's looking like a colder than average autumn is off the table, because there is no model now. Last month did have one model, had the Jamstech, but now there's no models that are going for a colder than average autumn. The temperature signal is either to be close to average in one or two of these models, but most of them are actually going for a warmer or significantly warmer than average autumn. So the long run of warmth that we've had since April set to continue for the autumn if these models are correct. Now, as far as the precipitation anomaly is concerned, that again is a little bit more split. So some of these models are still going for rather unsettled autumn, a little bit wetter than average. But I think there's more models actually this month that are drier than average for this autumn. So a little bit of a shift has taken place there, because last month it was around a 50-50 split between models that were warm and dry and models that are warm and wet. Now I'd say it's closer to 70-30 really between the models that are warm but wet through the autumn and the models that are warm and dry, with the 70% of models coming out dry and warm for this autumn. So it is a bit of a mixed bag, but I think we have shifted more towards the drier side of things, anticyclonic side of things for the autumn, and most of the models are looking quite warm as well. Right, so this video will be placed on the autumn updates and forecast page later on today. There'll be a written summary that goes with it too. Coming up later on today, got weekend forecast, and we'll also have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days as well. So come back for all the updates. Next month, got the third and final seasonal model roundup for the autumn 2018. And on the 26th of August, we will release the GazWeathers.com autumn forecast. We'll put the seasonal models together with our analogs updates, and we'll try and come up with a forecast for you for the autumn. But for now, that's it from me for now. So thanks very much for watching.